He came within a hair of the 2016 Democratic nomination.
Whoa!
This time, Senator Bernie Sanders says he's going all the way.
What's going to be different this time?
We're going to win.
With the party moving left, the independent, Democratic socialist from Vermont reminds voters he's the original.
3 years ago, during our 2016 campaign, we were told that our ideas were radical and they were extreme.
And in the shadow of this once iconic steel plant,
Senator Bernie Sanders talks the economy, jobs, and his vision for the future of America.
Enthusiastic crowd here. I'm Brett Baer.
And I'm Martha McCallum. Thank you so much. Thank you guys in the audience. Great to have everybody here. Behind us, as you can see, is the now shuttered Bethlehem steel plant.
In its heyday, the Bethlehem steel plant blasts those furnaces and they produce thousands of tons of steel a day. That steel built skyscrapers and helped the U.S. win 2 world wars. The plant closed in 1995, really devastating this working class community.
But now there is a new day dawning in Bethlehem, economically and politically. Here in Northampton County, which is where we are, they voted for President Barack Obama in big numbers, and for the Democrat all the way back to Bush 41, actually. But it flipped the script in this county, and they voted for Donald Trump in 2016 by a shift of 9 points.
And that's one of the reasons we are here. Senator Sanders is hoping to get those voters back in the blue column. According to all recent polls, he's leading among declared Democrat candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Senator, we want to start. We're going to get a lot of questions from the audience. Martha and I will follow up throughout. Let's start by getting right to our audience. Our first question is from Joe. He is a student from Allentown, PA. Joe, what's your question?
Hey, Joe.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Now that your tax returns have been released and you have been identified as a millionaire and in the top 1%, will you pay your fair share? And how do you plan to apply the policies that you have been talking about enforcing on top earners? Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Well, I happen to believe, Joe, that we have an absurd tax system. And while millions of people today are paying actually more in taxes than they anticipated, Amazon, Netflix, and dozens of major corporations, as a result of Trump's tax bill, pay nothing in federal taxes. I think that's a disgrace. So today we announced now, you raised the issue, I am a millionaire. Well, actually, this year we had $560,000 in income. And that's a lot of money. And that money, in my case, my wife's case, it came from a book that I wrote. Pretty good book. You might want to read it. It was a bestseller, sold all over the world, and we made money. So if anyone thinks that I should apologize for writing a best-selling book, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. But let me reiterate, I voted against. I guess on Fox News you said that I benefited from Trump's tax bill. Did you tell people that I voted against Trump's tax bill?
Sure, but you did benefit from it.
Yeah. But I voted against it. And I happen to believe that a tax bill written and pushed by Trump, who told the American people that that tax bill, some of you may recall, would not benefit the wealthy. You remember that? Oh, it's not going to benefit the wealthy. 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. So I think that's a bad idea. And in my view, people, whether it's me, you probably make a lot more money than I do. But whether it's me or you or anybody else, I think wealthy people and large corporations that are making billions in profits should start paying their fair share of taxes.
But Senator, to your point, and to Joe's point, your taxes do show that you're a millionaire. You did make $1 million in 2016, 2017. You're right, the 561 in 2018. But your marginal tax rate was 26% because of President Trump's tax cuts. So why not say, you know, I'm leading this revolution. I'm not going to take those.
Come on, we're doing. I pay the taxes that I owe. And by the way, why don't you get Donald Trump up here and ask him how much he pays in taxes?
We will.
Yeah, well, good. Well, I am eagerly awaiting your doing that.
Well, we'd love to have.
We would love to have
we'll
that
make this-
question.
Get him up
We
here.
absolutely
And if
will.
the president, I guess the president watches your network a little bit, right? Hey, President Trump, my wife and I just released 10 years. Please do the same. Let the American people know how much money you're making.
All right. But just to wrap that up, you do spend a lot of time vilifying millionaires.
No, I
and
don't vilify. The fact that I think people who are doing phenomenally well right now, as you know, for 40 years, we have seen a shrinking middle class. You got 40 million people living in poverty. And today, just so happens that the very wealthy are doing incredibly wealthy. It's not vilifying to say that people have a whole lot of money, in some cases billions of dollars of wealth. They should pay their fair share of taxes.
Right. Well,
that's not vilifying.
Last question on this. A lot of millionaires and billionaires give a ton to charity. You gave 3.4%.
Yeah. My wife and I do give money to charity. All right? And we're proud to do what we did. There are others, you're quite right. There are people, Gates Foundation, do a phenomenal job. We do what we do.
All right, I got a couple questions for you. So you've recommended a wealth tax, 70% wealth tax.
No, actually, I didn't. That was
70,
somebody
77%.
else. No, I think another person.
What's your number?
What's my number? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that in order to make sure that elderly people do not continue to live in poverty, and you got 20% of elderly people trying to get by on $13,000 or $14,000 a year, I think we should raise that cap for people making $250,000 or more, so we can make sure that our parents can live out their lives in dignity. I'll tell you what else I think. I think at a time when Wall Street is doing phenomenally well, and we have millions of young people who are deeply in debt for the crime of having gone to college, I believe we should pass a speculation tax on
that's
Wall
fine,
Street.
but I'm asking you about the wealthy and how much higher you would make it. You said
Yeah,
you don't agree with 70%. What would your number be?
In the campaign in 2016, we talked about 52%.
All right, so 52%. So would you be willing to pay 52% on the money that you made?
Also,
you can volunteer. You can send a check.
Well, you can volunteer, too. We have a...
But you suggested that
Hey,
that's
Martha.
what everybody in your bracket should do.
And Martha, why don't you give? You make more money than I do.
Well,
Why don't you
I
give?
didn't suggest a wealth tax.
And she's not running for president.
And
All
I'm
right,
not
but
running
we're
for
going to
president.
fight for a wealth tax. And we're going to demand that we end the absurdity where major corporation after major corporation, you know what,
Yeah, but I'm talking about individual taxes right now.
tax bill that you are defending, families like the
defending any
Koch
tax bill.
brothers,
We're
of course
asking
you're
you
defending
questions
it.
about what you
Families
propose.
like the Koch brothers get billions
not
and
gonna answer my
billions
question.
of dollars in savings. That is absurd. Trump wants to repeal the entire estate tax, huge tax breaks for billionaires. You got another question?
Well,
We have many questions.
We have many questions.
And listen, we want to get substance. We want to get details.
Well, let's do it.
And the audience has a ton of questions, too.
All right.
Martha?
So our question comes from Kathy Harrington. Kathy, what's your question for Senator Sanders?
Hi, Senator Sanders. Welcome to the Lehigh Valley. So my question is, the definition of socialism is just a society agreeing to work together and combining their resources to make sure everyone is protected and taken care of. How can you challenge the idea that socialism is bad in the minds of the public?
You might have asked them, not me. But
Is this going to be a constant thing?
no,
No,
it will not.
All right.
All right. You ask me fair questions, I will give you fair answers.
Thank you, sir.
That's the deal.
And you know, not everybody thought that I should come on this show.
And we appreciate it.
All right. Your network does not necessarily have a great deal of respect in my world, but I thought it was important for me to be here and have a serious discussion about serious issues. Sally asked a good question. Thanks for that question, Sally. And let's talk about it. And I think it's an important issue, but it will come up. What is democratic socialism? Fair question? Okay. So let's talk about it. Democratic socialism, to me, is creating a government and an economy and a society which works for all rather than just the top 1%. It means ending the absurd inequalities that exist today. And I want to lay this out because you're not going to hear this much on Fox, and you're not going to hear this much in the media in general. And the American people have got to conclude whether we think it is appropriate and what America is about to have 3 families owning more wealth than the bottom half of the American society, 160 million people. Whether it's appropriate for the top 1% to own more wealth than the bottom 92%. Whether it is right that 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%, when many people, Brett and Martha, who are watching this program, are working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills. So, first of all, we want to create a government that works for all of us, and we want to create a political system which is based on one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections as a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And furthermore, when I talk, and people have different views of capitalism or democratic socialism, whatever it may be, but this is my view. I believe that human beings, especially in a wealthy, democratic, civilized society like our own, are entitled to certain basic rights. So let me be very clear, and I'm sure we'll discuss it later in the show, Brett. I believe that health care is a human right, not a privilege. Okay? And I believe that there is something embarrassingly wrong when the United States of America is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. I live 50 miles from the Canadian border.
We're going to get in detail about Medicare.
Right. So health care is right. I believe that education, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, you have the right to get all of the education you need. And that is why I believe we should make public colleges and universities tuition free.
We're going to talk about all of this.
Good.
And we're going to try to talk about how you pay for it, which is a real question.
Absolutely.
But I just want to, back on the taxes briefly, when you wrote the book and you made the money,
yeah,
isn't that the definition of capitalism, the American dream?
No. I mean, what we want is a country where everybody has opportunity. I have a college degree. I'm a United States Senator. But a lot of people don't have a college degree. A lot of people are not United States Senators. I want everybody in this country to be able to have health care, to have education, to when they turn on the water, have drinkable water, not toxic water. So what we are fighting for, Brett, is a society not where just a few people can make a whole lot of money, but a society where everybody in this country has the opportunity to live in security and dignity.
All right. So this weekend, I'm going to talk a little bit about the field of Democratic candidates who are out there. This weekend, Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, announced that he is also a candidate for the Democratic nomination. He's running, and here's what he said in South Bend.
A moment like that calls for hopeful and audacious voices from communities like ours. And yes, it calls for a new generation of leadership in this country.
So Buttigieg obviously is the youngest candidate. He would certainly be the youngest president if he were to win at 37 years old. And you are 77 years old, sir. He's calling for a new generation. He didn't name anyone specifically. But what do you say to those who have raised the question of whether or not you would be too old at 79 as president?
Well, follow me around the campaign trail. Martha, I mean, it is a fair question. It's a fair question. And all I can say is if there was wood here, I'd knock on it. Thank God my health is good. When I was a kid, I was a long-distance runner, one of the better milers in New York City, and I've continued to have my endurance. But I think when you look at a candidate, yeah, you could look at age, that's fair. You could look at experience. I was a mayor for 8 years, know a little bit about local government. I was a member of the House. I'm a member of the United States Senate. I've been all over the world talking to heads of state. So, I mean, I think it is a combination of factors. But at the end of the day, this is what I honestly believe. It's not whether you're young. It's not whether you're old. It is what you believe in. And I have to say, and this is not a criticism of Fox. This is a criticism of media in general. There is too much focus on individuals and not enough focus on the American people and what their needs are. And I want to tell you this, and again, this is not just Fox. This is all the rest. I go out and I listen to the people, and they ask me questions. Those questions are often very, very different than the issues being discussed by media on Capitol Hill. Okay? So.
All right, Senator, we want to get back to audience questions. I do want to say that we understand, and we're very grateful that you're here. We are giving you an hour of substance and talk on our airwaves, so we can get over the Fox thing, if you're all right with that. Okay. Brian is a city councilman here in Bethlehem. Brian, what's your question? Go ahead, Brian. Hold on one second. Brian's got the floor.
Senator Sanders, as a
where's Brian? Okay.
And as a member of Bethlehem City Council, welcome to the Christmas City. My question is, as a lifetime Kennedy Democrat, more specifically center left, my concern is that President Trump has so inflamed the Democratic base that we will shift too far left and overreach like the Republicans did with the Tea Party in 2010. What are your thoughts on that?
Good question. And look, this is what I say every day. I disagree with Donald Trump on virtually every issue, and I talk about it. And I'll tell you what upsets me, but I'll tell you what upsets me the most, and I'm going to answer your question, is that whether you're conservative or moderate or progressive, I don't think the American people are proud that we have a president who is a pathological liar. And I say that, it does not give me pleasure to say that. All right, I disagreed with George W. Bush on almost everything. Bush was not a pathological liar. Trump cannot even tell the truth, even as to where his father was born. It's really that crazy. His father was born in New York. He claims he was born in Germany. But if you can't even tell the truth about where your father was born, it's hard to believe anything that he says. But to answer your question, look, if we spend all of our time attacking Trump, you know what? Democrats are going to lose. All right? Our job is to lay out a vision that makes sense to the working families of this country. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Over a 4-year period, and the video that you showed earlier, I think, captured that, we raised issues 4 years ago which were thought to be extreme and a little bit out there, but today they're accepted by the American people. So I think you talk to the people of Bethlehem and Burlington, Vermont, you say, what's on your mind? Well, you know what? Among other things, if you work 40 hours a week, people don't want to live in poverty. We've got to raise that minimum wage to a living wage. In my state of Vermont and all over this country, we've got an infrastructure that is falling about. Roads and bridges and water systems, wastewater. But we can put 15 million people back to work with a $1 trillion investment. Think that makes sense to people? So I agree with you, all right? I mean, I think Trump is a dangerous president, but if all we do is focus on him, we lose. Our job is to develop an agenda that speaks to the needs of workers. When we do that, we're going to win, and win big.
Senator, it looks like, nobody knows for sure, but it looks like Vice President Joe Biden is likely to get into the race. Are you worried that the DNC, if that, he would be a strong establishment candidate, he's obviously been around for a long time, are you worried that the DNC might put its finger on the scale again, the way that they did to you back in 2016 with Hillary Clinton?
Well, you're right. We went through that in 2016. Yeah. And I think we have come a long way since then. So we speak to the DNC every week. And I think the process will be fair. One of the important changes that we made, and we won, is, as you will recall, both of you recall, in the last time around, in 2016, Secretary Clinton had 500 superdelegates lined up behind her before the first vote was cast in Iowa. And that seemed to me pretty dumb and unfair. Well, that process has been changed. And I think that works well for everybody.
But let me ask you, just because now the process is that in the next round, the superdelegates would come into play. And with so many candidates on the Democratic side, it's possible that somebody doesn't get 50%. Yep. Are you concerned about it? Are you talking to the DNC about that? Could
well,
that
that's what the rule is. I mean, that's where we are right now. But you're right. I mean, I would hope that the Democratic Party understands what they did some years ago. And that is what we want to hear from is not political insiders and campaign contributors. You want to hear from ordinary people in Iowa and Pennsylvania, and they should determine who the next Democratic nominee will be.
Okay, let's go to another question. Jordan is a student from Scotch Plains. He has the next question.
Hi, Senator. Thank you so much for being here. My question is, why do you believe that the government can provide better health care than the private sector, and why should people who like their plans be forced to switch?
Okay. First of all, let's be clear what we mean by Medicare for all, okay? Medicare is a government-run program for seniors, which is widely popular and quite effective. In 1965, when Lyndon Johnson passed that bill, it was called by some Republicans socialism and everything else. But you go to the average senior and you say, how do you feel about Medicare? And they will tell you that they will oppose any Republican effort to cut Medicare. And by the way, in Trump's budget, he has proposed an $845 billion cut over a 10-year period to Medicare, which seniors don't want. So to answer your question, we are not talking about government-run health care. The Veterans Administration, and most veterans think that that's a pretty good health care system. Talk to the American Legion and the VFW. They strongly defend the veterans' health care. That's government-run. What we are talking about is simply a single-payer insurance program, which means that you will have a card which says Medicare on it. You'll go to any doctor that you want. You'll go to any hospital that you want. And by the way, millions of people today are in networks which prevent them from doing this. So this gives you freedom of choice with regard to the doctors you go to or the hospitals you go to. But here is the main point when we talk about health care. Currently, right now, we got 30 million people, zero health insurance, and many of you and tens of millions of Americans are underinsured with high deductibles and copayments. Is that correct? Yes. All right. So what happens is there are estimates that some 30,000 Americans die every single year because they don't go to the doctor when they should. All right. Meanwhile, we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. 1 out of 5 Americans are getting ripped off by the drug companies who make billions in profits while charging us the highest prices in the world. And on top of all of that, we spend twice as much per capita on health care as do the people of any other nation. So the question that I throw back to you, do you think it makes sense to spend twice as much per capita as the people of any other nation and be the only country in the world not to guarantee health care to all people?
This audience has a lot of Democrats in it. It has Republicans, independents, Democratic socialists, conservatives. I want to ask the audience a question. If you could raise your hand here. A show of hands of how many people get their insurance from work, private insurance, right now. How many get it from private insurance? Okay. Now, of those, how many are willing to transition to what the senator says, a government-run system? There's 180 million people on private insurance.
All right, let's deal with that, Brett.
And they would be lost, right? To your
Brett,
system.
fair
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Good question.
Good, thank you.
I know it's what the right wing throws out, so let me answer it. All right? Millions of people every single year lose their health insurance. You know why? They get fired or they quit and they go to another employer. I was the mayor for 8 years. You know what I did? What probably every mayor in America does? Is you look around for the best insurance program, the most cost-effective insurance. You change insurance. Every year, millions of workers wake up in the morning and their employer has changed the insurance that they have. Maybe they like the doctors. People are nodding their heads. Okay? So this is not new. Every year. Now, what we're talking about actually is stability. That when you have a Medicare for all, it is there now and will be there in the future.
Senator, let me ask you a question about Vermont, because Vermont tried to have a single-payer program. And in 2014, the Democratic governor abandoned it because he had to raise income taxes, had to raise payroll taxes, and the people of Vermont didn't want their taxes to go up.
No, it's not quite true.
And they abandoned the program. So if you work in Vermont...
Well, you're getting into internal Vermont politics, of which I know a little bit.
Well, I'm sure you
do.
do.
I don't want to be... All right, the governor did a rather poor job. But I think if you look at polling, especially among Democrats, as I'm sure you have, you tell me, strong majority of Democrats and more than a few Republicans want to see a Medicare for all program. What the opponents, and let's be clear about this, Martha. When you are dealing with health care, which is, what's it, 18% of our GDP? I mean, we're talking about $3.5 trillion a year. And you have insurance companies that make billions and billions of dollars in profit. Let me give you an example, if I might, of the dysfunctionality of the current healthcare system. Recently, Aetna merged with CVS. You may recall that. Big merger, which in my view will drive healthcare costs up. The gentleman who was head of Aetna's named Mr. Bertolini. You know what he got for putting together that merger? He got a $500 million bonus. Do you think that's how we should spend healthcare dollars?
I mean, I think everybody is in agreement that healthcare needs to be fixed in this country. The question is how. And my question to you was, it will drive up taxes to pay for healthcare. And not just the wealthy will pay for that, the middle class will also pay for it.
Very good.
So how do you justify it? And
all right, Martha, what are you not including in your discussion?
You tell me.
I will tell you. You're not going to pay any health insurance premiums. But look, Martha,
say one way or the other.
Martha.
Whether it's in your income tax or your payroll tax, you're going to pay.
Look, healthcare is not free. You never heard me suggest that we're going to magically...
You just said it was going to be free for everyone.
It's going to be free at the point of when you use it, okay? And you go to... Why are you so shocked by this?
Because someone's going to pay.
Somebody is going to pay.
Who are they? Who pays?
Okay, one second.
Okay,
relax.
I'm just asking.
We'll be talking.
Please.
We'll get through this together.
It's a common question.
Okay.
We had so many email questions.
Okay.
Ask Senator Sanders how he is
Fair
going
enough.
to pay.
I got it.
It's a fair
But
question.
the first thing, let's just say hypothetically.
Okay.
You are self-employed, and you've got a husband and 2 kids, okay? Family of 4. Do you know how much that family is paying today for health care?
How many?
$28,000 a year.
Okay.
All right, we're spending $11,000 per person. We are saying to that family of 4, you ain't going to pay that $28,000. You're not paying any more premiums. You're not paying any more co-payments. You're not paying any more deductibles. How's that? $28,000 you're not paying. But does that mean you're not going to pay something? Of course it does. You're going to pay more in taxes.
And do members of Congress who now have gold-plated health insurance...
No, we don't.
Well, they have a special plan that's outside Obamacare. A different plan. You know, do members of Congress, are they going to do that transition as well?
Damn right. Of course. Of course. Why would you suggest otherwise? But I want to make the point. I want to get back to the point that Martha raised. Look, healthcare costs money. Every other country, or virtually every country, does it in the same way we do education for our kids. Okay, when a kid walks into school, kid doesn't have to take out a credit card, right? It's paid for out of public funds. That's what most countries do. So if you're asking me, if your question is a fair question, are people going to pay more in taxes? Yes. But at the end of the day, the overwhelming majority of people are going to end up paying less for health care because they're not paying premiums, co-payments, and deductibles.
We're going to get into many more specifics. Senator, thank you.
We're back with our town hall with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Let's take some more questions from our audience.
All right, so we're going to go to Rodney. Rodney, are you up? Hi, Rodney. Hi. What's your question for Senator Sanders?
Thank you. My question for Senator Sanders here is, how would you bring back jobs in industry like Bethlehem Steel that have been lost due to, in part, trade deals that don't favor the American working class?
Hey, Rodney, that's a great question. You are looking at a former congressman and a senator who not only voted against NAFTA, walked the picket lines with union workers to see that, voted against CAFTA, voted against permanent normal trade relations with China, strongly opposed the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And why did I oppose all of these disastrous trade agreements? It was very clear to me that these agreements under Democratic and Republican leadership was written by multinational corporations to make these corporations even wealthier at the expense of the American worker. So let me suggest what is not a radical idea. American workers should not have to compete against desperate people around the world who are making $1 or $2 an hour. Now, I think we have a moral responsibility to lift up poor people around the world along with the rest of the wealthy countries. But you can do that without engaging in a race to the bottom. I have heard from, I've got a 100% lifetime pro-union voting work, and I'm very close to the unions. And I talk to union workers, and they say, our boss has said that if you don't take a pay cut, you don't take a cut in health care, we're going to move to Mexico, we're going to move to China, where people are prepared to work for almost nothing. So we need trade is a good thing, but we need a trade policy that works for working families and not just for the large corporations.
All right, so you just saw in Peter Ducey's package there, people saying that they think the economy is doing pretty well here. So in Pennsylvania, you've got unemployment is down over the past couple of years. Wages are up 6.6%. So how do you convince those people in this area who I know you'd like to win over this time around that they should, sort of change horses and go with you when things are going well?
Okay, well, that's a fair question, and let's look what's going on not only in the United States, around the world. I know Donald Trump will tell you that he is responsible for the relatively low unemployment which we currently experience. Well, guess what? In 2010, at the heart of the Wall Street crash, unemployment in America was 10%. You remember that. Yep. By the time Obama left office, it was 4.5%. Okay? So it's gone down, and in the last 2.5 years under Trump, it has gone down again. Where are we at 3.5% now? That's good. Okay, but there's been a steady decline. Do you know what unemployment is in Germany now? 3.1%. In Japan, it's 2.8%. In the UK, it's a hair higher than us. In other words, the entire global economy, thank God, is bouncing back for the terrible, terrible Wall Street disaster that cost so many jobs and caused so much suffering in this country. Okay?
And you said that has nothing to do with the Trump
Certainly not. What I'm suggesting to you is the facts are very clear, is that in Japan, in Germany, United Kingdom, all over the world, thank God, it's a good thing, the global economy is coming back and unemployment is relatively low. Now, I know Trump will give a slightly different spin on it. But in the midst of all of this, in the current economy today, while unemployment is low, and we're all delighted by that, what you have is that most of the new income and wealth continues to go to the very, very wealthy. You have a situation now where 7 million more people lack health insurance that used to have it. And you still have a situation where in states all over this country, and it's hard for me to believe this, but it's true, you got people still working for $7.50, $8 an hour because Trump and Republicans refused to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. So, to answer your question, the economy today is good, thank God, but you got tens of millions of workers still struggling to put food on the table, and we've got to address their needs as part of the debate.
Let me ask you just quickly, if you raise taxes on corporations, which I know you weren't happy with the tax cuts for corporations, aren't you afraid that that is going to chill employment, that those companies are going to say, you know what, we have 100 employees, we could do it with 50. We can do it with 60. We're not going to pay these higher taxes. We're not going to, isn't that a concern?
If you want to defend, I think we look at the world a little bit differently, but if you want to defend a tax system in which Amazon, owned by the wealthiest person in this country, pays zero in federal taxes.
I don't think anybody thinks that's fair.
Okay, good.
But I'm saying if you raise taxes on companies, small businesses across the country,
well,
are you worried that they will employ fewer people?
Tax policy is complicated, and you got to do it right. You didn't hear me say we're going to raise taxes on small business, did you? What we are talking about is raising taxes on large, profitable corporations and on the wealthiest people in this country, and I think that is just.
Senator, you look at the list, you're for the Green New Deal and different policies within it, but you're for it generally. We talked about Medicare for all.
Can we talk about...
yeah, we will. Free college tuition.
Yep.
You have an infrastructure plan.
Yep.
We have a shot of the current national debt clock. It stands at more than $22 trillion tonight, and as we're talking here, it is ticking up. You've talked about ways to pay for your plans, but there is a lot of doubt that your plans might actually speed up that clock dramatically. So when you look at that, do you not care about that anymore?
I think you're asking the wrong guy. Maybe it's the president you might want to ask. But, I mean, Brett, in all due respect,
sure.
Trump gave $1.5 trillion tax break to the top 1% and large profitable corporations. And I find it so ironic that my Republican colleagues in the Senate who talk all the time about the debt, they don't have a word to say about that.
No, we've done many stories about
okay, I'm that's not a criticism, not a criticism. But what I am saying is that
I'm asking you.
Yeah, we in fact, I am concerned about the debt. That's a legitimate concern. Every American should be concerned about it. That's not something we should be leaving to our kids and our grandchildren. But we pay for what we are proposing. In terms of Medicare for all, we are paying for that by eliminating, as I said before, deductibles and premiums. We're going to save the average family money. When we're paying twice as much as other countries, we're going to save money on health care. I talked about a tax on Wall Street speculation that will help us make colleges, public colleges and universities tuition free. We have a tax plan to raise the $1 trillion we need over a 10-year period to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. So I think you're talking to the wrong guy. We pay for what we are proposing, unlike the President of the United States.
We have another audience question. Amy is a therapist from South Whitehall Township. Amy, what's your question?
There she is. Hi, I work as a therapist specifically with people struggling with opioid addiction. Pennsylvania is currently 4th in the nation for opioid overdose deaths, which amounts to 15 people a day in Pennsylvania. As president, what specific policies would you implement in order to address this crisis?
Thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing. And let me say, it's not just Pennsylvania. It's Vermont. It's New Hampshire. It is a terrible, terrible crisis. For the first thing that I would do is make certain that we never allow Trump to implement his plan, which would throw 32 million people off of the health insurance that they have. Some of you remember, and think about what that would do to dealing with opioids. You may remember that during the campaign, you correct me if I'm wrong, you guys follow this stuff, President Donald Trump campaigned, and he said, I'm a different type of Republican. You remember that? He said, I'm not going to cut Medicaid. I'm not going to cut Medicare. Well, the last budget that he brought forth called for $1.5 trillion cut in Medicaid over a 10-year period, $845 billion in Medicare. What would $1.5 trillion cut to Medicaid do for our ability to combat the opioid addiction? So what we need, in fact, is we need a series of ideas to deal with this very, very serious addiction. You know, we are facing a nation right now where our life expectancy is actually going down. And one of the reasons is drug addiction, it is alcoholism, it is suicide, which the doctors refer to as diseases of despair. When people are giving up on life, that's what happens. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have the treatment capabilities, which most states don't have. Actually, Vermont's doing fairly well in that. That means if you want to get off of that addiction, there is a place for you to go. It's difficult, it's tough stuff, but we have to deal with addiction in a serious way and invest in treatment for those who are addicted.
For all of these plans, you say there are enough taxes to raise to pay for all of the plans.
Yes.
There are bipartisan independent groups who have looked at those plans and say it just doesn't add up. Well, what do you say to them? We
disagree. And sometimes these plans done by think tanks, check out who funds the think tanks. Yes. Okay. Look, Brett, here is the issue that we have to deal with. Let me just bring it down to a human level. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world. That's where we are right now. Do you think we should be having the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major nation on earth? We got some moms here who are spending $15,000, $20,000 a year trying to find quality child care for their kids. We probably have a child care system which is more dysfunctional than almost any other country on earth, when we all know that 0 through 4 are the most important years. You got hundreds of thousands of bright young people in America today, the wealthiest country in the world. They can't afford to go to college. And you got 40 million people struggling with student debt. You really think that we cannot do better as a nation? And on top of that, you got a handful of people who own more wealth than the bottom half of the American society. Now, I understand that we're taking on corporate America, we're taking on the Republicans, we're taking on the Democratic establishment, taking on the drug companies, taking on the insurance companies, taking on the military-industrial complex. You know what? Okay? It ain't easy. I know that. But I think what the American people know, the American people, I think, are ready to deal with justice in America. That's what we're fighting for. And that's economic justice, social justice, environmental justice, racial justice. Okay?
We want to get to some questions about.
Sorry, Martha,
okay. We want to get to some questions about immigration.
Oh, sorry, immigration.
Immigration.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about the border. The president, as you know, has said that the capacity for the asylum seekers that were full at the border in terms of housing, and it's overflowing.
Yes.
It's a bad, untenable situation right now. He has suggested, and it's been very controversial over the past few days, sending some of those people to sanctuary cities, which have said in the past that they have opened doors for immigrants, So where do the overflow that we have no capacity for, where do you think they should go?
Well, first thought, I mean, this president, well, let me get into this, friend. Look, I talked enough about it. But we have a problem at the border, a serious problem. And what is the problem? The problem right now, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong, is that we are now seeing desperate people fleeing violence and misery in Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, with little children walking 1,000 miles. They're not trying to sneak in, correct me if I'm wrong. They're going up and they say, we want asylum because I don't want my little girl to grow up, to be treated horribly by gangs, okay? Now, you're right, there are a whole lot of people. So what do we need to do? We need sensible immigration reform, which includes, among other things, getting hundreds of new judges, because the system is now overflowing, who can deal with these issues. You're coming into the country, are you really fleeing violence, or is another reason?
Right.
Okay, so you need to have many, many more judges to expedite the process.
And new asylum laws?
Pardon me?
New asylum laws?
Let's look. But historically, from an international and national perspective, and I speak as the son of an immigrant himself, not in this kind of position, but who came to this country at the age of 17 from Poland without a nickel in his pocket. Internationally, what the world has said is that if you are fleeing violence, if your life is in danger, that other countries should welcome you in. But we need real comprehensive immigration reform. We don't need, and let me say this very clearly, we don't need to demonize immigrants. That we don't need to do.
But let me ask you to answer my question, which is, right now, if you were the president of the United States, we have overflowing facilities. They need to go somewhere because they're in that asylum process.
What about building?
Where would you put them?
What about building proper facilities for them right now?
Where?
That can be done
Where?
right on the border. Right on the border at the same
So the people who live on the border should have more facilities in their states, but sanctuary cities which have said they're open to accepting people should not take more.
Now, this is a political act on the president.
It's a real question. That's a real question.
No, it's not a real question.
Yes, it is.
It's a political decision. So what you want to do, let's talk about immigration, which is a real issue. Okay, first of all, instead of demonizing immigrants, well, I'm saying you are, but we have a president who certainly does every single day. What we need is comprehensive immigration reform. That's what the American people want. And if we had a president who believed in that, we could actually do it. What you also want to do,
both parties need to agree on it.
You got today Trump ended the DACA program that Obama established. You know what that means? That means every day more and more young people who were raised in the United States from 2 or 3 years of age, they're in the military, they are teachers. They're working all over this country. They are now scared to death that somebody's going to pick them up and throw them out of the country. And that is what Trump did. We need to provide legal status to those people. And we need a humane Look, Martha, I'm not saying this is an easy issue, but let's not politicize it. What we need, as I said, we need the proper legal processes at the border so that these issues can be adjudicated to determine whether or not people should be entitled to asylum.
And you didn't talk about a wall or security there, but you've talked about that before.
We need border security. Of course we do. Who argues with that? That goes without saying. Now, I happen to believe that there are more cost-effective ways to do that than simply building a...
All right, let's go back to the audience. Tony is a real estate agent from Copley, Pennsylvania, has our next question. Tony?
Senator Sanders, good luck in your campaign.
Thank you.
As a Syrian American, I want to be assured our country isn't going to partake in any foreign affairs that don't directly affect our national security. I believe we need to stay out of Syria, Venezuela, and other countries that have their own personal issues. Do you wholeheartedly agree with this sentiment, or are you going to become another cog in the war machine?
Well, Tony, thank you. That's an excellent question. You know, we don't, as a nation, we don't discuss foreign affairs quite as much as we should. Tony, you're looking at a guy who, once again, not only voted against the war in Iraq, I helped lead the opposition to the war in Iraq. And if you go back to YouTube, and what I said then is that wars have unintended consequences, whether it was the tragedy of Vietnam, where so many people in my generation are still suffering as a result of that, people sleeping out on the streets. And by the way, we have got to make sure that no veteran in this country sleeps out in the street. But let me just say this. And this is, in a sense, good news, and I know you guys know this, that in the last month, I led the effort along with Senator Mike Lee, who was a conservative from Utah. Mike and I led the effort in the Senate, and some really great people in a bipartisan way led it in the House. And what we said is we think that the United States should get out of the Saudi-led war in Yemen. And for the first time since the War Powers Act was passed 45 years ago, we succeeded in the House and the Senate. And let me say this in a very serious way. I've been critical of the president all night, but let me just say this. The president has said that he does not want to see this country involved in endless wars, and I agree with that. And Mr. President, tonight you have the opportunity to do something extraordinary. Sign that resolution. Saudi Arabia should not be determining the military or foreign policy of this country. Let's get out of Saudi Arabia. Let's develop a bipartisan approach so that we do not continue to be engaged in, wars like Afghanistan, which is, 18 years in that war.
19. So from a foreign policy perspective, which country is the biggest threat to the U.S.?
I don't know that look, I don't like using the word threat because that says, oh, my God, we have to spend zillions more on the military. I'll give you an example. Clearly, we are concerned about China and we're concerned about Russia. But here's the irony here. You got people who say we need to spend even more than $700 billion a year, more than the next 10 nations combined on the military. You know why? Because that China is a real potential enemy. These are the same people who are investing billions of dollars building the Chinese economy. I find that somewhat ironic. All right? So I don't like to use the word enemy. Clearly, we need a strong defense. We need to bring the United States and the rest of the world together, do everything we can to rid this world of nuclear weapons. And I'll tell you what else, in my view, is a national security issue. And that is, we have got, as a nation, to reject Trump's idea that climate change is a hoax. And, I'm sure you're familiar with the scientific reports that tell us that we have all of 12 years to significantly cut carbon emissions, or else there will be irreparable damage to the United States and countries all over the world. So we have a moral responsibility, in my view, to transform our energy system and leave this planet healthy and habitable for our children and our grandchildren. And by the way, when we do that, we create millions of good paying jobs.
Let me ask you one, because you brought up the question of emissions, and just one quick question for you on emissions. So you think we should eliminate nuclear power, which I know they did in Vermont, but it ended up actually moving your emissions higher by 16% in Vermont because nuclear doesn't have any emissions.
Honestly, I don't think that that's correct. I think we are moving.
I can show you where
I can tell you that in my city,
against nuclear?
in my city, in Burlington, Vermont, which is the largest city in the state of Vermont, I believe that all of our energy is now renewable. That's something I started way back when I was mayor. And other cities are doing the same. But Martha, here is the point. Here is the point. Yeah, I happen to believe, I do believe we should phase out, not eliminate it tomorrow. We should phase out nuclear power plants. But here is the main point. The main point is that if we do not combat climate change, I fear very much the kind of world that we're leaving to our kids in terms of more drought, more flooding, more extreme weather disturbances, more rising ocean levels. And when those things happen, by the way, they become a national security issue because people migrate. If I can't, if I'm living in the Mideast someplace and I can't grow food on my land, I'm going to pick up and leave, and that causes conflict. So,
you said, Senator, that you wanted a strong defense, but your plan does call for significant cuts in defense. Would that send a message to the rest of the world that we are weaker?
No. We are now spending, Brett, we're spending, more than the next 10 nations combined, including many of our allies. We're now spending over $700 billion a year on defense. So we need a strong defense. But I will also tell you this. We have a Pentagon, and there are some Republicans. Mike Enzi, I'm the ranking member of the Budget Committee. Mike is the chairman of it. And Mike, I think, and I are in agreement on this. He's a conservative Republican, that there's something wrong when the Pentagon is the only major agency of government that has not undertaken or completed a major audit. And there are very few people who doubt that there's a massive amount of waste and overruns. You remember John McCain. Late John McCain would talk about the incredible cost overruns with existing in the Pentagon. So we do need a strong defense, and I support a strong defense, but I don't support, waste and profiteering within the military-industrial complex.
So we're going to do a quick lightning round, if you would. A lightning round. We'll try to do about 15-second answers.
Oh, I hate this. All right.
All right. So the first one is a very serious question. You said yesterday, I watched your rally in Pittsburgh, that no one should tell a woman what to do with her own body. With regard to abortion, with regard to abortion, do you believe that a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy up until the moment of birth?
Look, I think that happens very, very rarely, and I think this is being made into a political issue. Okay? So I think it's rare, it's being made into a political issue, but at the end of the day, I believe that the decision over abortion belongs to a woman and a physician, not the federal government, not the state government, and not the local government.
Senator, you are looking to become the first Jewish president. Yes. You're also a staunch supporter of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who even...
Hold it. No. I've talked to Ilhan about twice in my life, so...
But you've tweeted support for
But this is what I do support. I support a Muslim member of Congress not to be attacked every single day in outrageous racist remarks.
Sure. My question is that even some fellow Democrats had some problems, have accused her of using language kind of associated with anti-Semitism. Can you understand why some Jewish Americans would have a problem with some of that?
Yeah, I can understand. I think that is not quite right, and I think that Ilana's got to do maybe a better job in speaking to the Jewish community. But if your question to me is, do I think she is anti-Semitic? No, I don't.
No, it's not her. I'm saying in the thread in the
I can understand.
Democratic
But here is the point also. I'm Jewish. My father's family was devastated by Hitler. So this is an issue of some sensitivity to me. So I will do everything in my power, and I hope that every member of Congress will fight not only anti-Semitism, but racism and anti-Muslim activity so that we create a non-discriminatory society. But it is not anti-Semitic to be critical of a right-wing government in Israel. That is not anti-Semitic, okay?
Do you believe Do you believe that murderers and rapists or thieves or child molesters should have the right to vote from prison?
Good question. All right, this is in my state. I recently researched this. It turns out that in our Constitution in the state of Vermont, for hundreds of years, everybody has the right to vote, okay? So I think you make this division. If somebody does something terrible, they're a rapist, they're a murderer, we send them away. Sometimes we send them away from life. But I also think that integral to who we are as Americans, no matter what kind of terrible things you did, you're paying the price. Maybe you're in jail for the rest of your life, but you have the right to vote. All right, and I'll tell you why. One of the things that upsets me very much is we have cowardly Republican governors who are working overtime to suppress the vote, to make it harder for people of color, for poor people, for young people to vote. So once you start and say, you committed a crime, you can't vote. Or you did this, you can't vote. You did that, you can't vote. I don't like that. Every American 18 of age of older who's a citizen in this country has the right to vote.
No matter their charge. What if they say the same thing about you, that you just want felons to vote because it will be better for you?
Oh, come on.
I mean, they could say the same thing, right?
And you have done a scientific study to determine that.
No, I'm just saying that everybody wants to, encourage voters and discourage voters depending on where they sit.
One of the great problems, one of the political problems that we're facing right now is the effort to deny people the right to vote. And look, I have run for office many times in Vermont. Sometimes I've lost, sometimes I've won. But I don't stay up nights trying to figure out how I can keep people from voting because they might vote against.
All right, two more quick things, very quickly. We've been told that the redacted Mueller report, the redacted version of the Mueller report, is coming out Thursday.
Right.
You don't talk a lot about the special counsel investigation on the campaign trail. Right. Why?
Well, because everybody else is talking about it. Look, it is what it is. It's coming out, I think, to the extent that as much of it as can be made public legally should be made public. I think the American people have a right to know what's in the report, period.
Finally.
All right, I want to one question about somebody who may run against you. Do you think that Joe Biden is a progressive?
Look, Joe is somebody who I have known for many, many years. Joe is a friend of mine. And by the way, I hope very much that in the Democratic primary, we got a lot of good people, many of them personal friends of mine, that we have a debate about the issues and not about personality. So, Joe is a friend of mine. That's all I'll tell you.
Do you think he's a progressive, though? He says he's a progressive.
You see, you're trying to do that. No, I'm not going to fall for that. Joe is a friend. He will give his point of view. Okay. I give mine. Let the people decide who they
of the 20 potential Democratic candidates, do you have one that you think will be the toughest challenger to you?
I have no idea. Today there was a poll that had us in the lead. Tomorrow we'll be in 18th place. Who knows what goes on? We'll just do the best that we can. All I can tell you, what I am proud of, is in our campaign, media paid attention to the money we raised good. More important to me, we have over 1 million people who have signed up to volunteer in the campaign.
All right, Senator.
Okay.
We're going to give you the floor here for a closing statement.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes. We want to give you a chance to give a closing statement.
We're going to give him a floor for a closing statement here.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I hope I wasn't too hard on you.
That's all right. We can take it.
All right. All right. Look, thank you all very much for being here. And thank everybody for watching. Just a couple of points. I think sometimes the divisions in this country get a little bit too hot. Okay? At the end of the day, we are all Americans who love this country. And I also think, and the media plays not a good role in this, and again, not just Fox, is we have a lot more in common than most people think we do. All right? Poll after poll. Should we raise the minimum wage to a living wage? Yes. Should we rebuild our crumbling infrastructure? Should we make sure that our veterans get the health care that they have earned? All right? Should we make sure that we do not cut Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid? Should we give huge tax breaks to billionaires? That's how most people feel. So I hope, look, I'm looking forward to a good campaign. And the last point that I want to make, and I thank Fox, for the opportunity of being here, and that is, I want to see our country have the highest voter turnout in the industrialized world, not one of the lowest. So no matter what your views are, get involved in the political process, stand up and fight to make this a better country. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator Sanders.